What most people do is try to learn a language, but what happens when they still struggle to do so? There are many reasons for this. However, a lot of the times it's because they're trying to learn a language instead of trying to make it a lifestyle. And in this video, I'm going to show you my principles of language learning and how they can help you make that transition successfully, and something that I always love to use with my one-on-one clients in order for them to also master a language on their own terms. This video is especially directed at you if you feel like your language routine only works out when your life is pretty much going perfectly. Like there is no interruption, there aren't any sort of outside obligations that surprise you and that make you have to adapt your routine on the fly. You are definitely not alone when you feel like whenever just life gets in the way in general, your routine falls apart, or that routine that you created that's beautiful, that's perfectly planned, does not even come to fruition fully because you can't implement it because of all of these life factors getting in the way. And the problem here is not you. You are not a bad language learner. It's just that the routine that you built is for your ideal days, let's say, when everything goes perfectly in your life, and it's not built to sustain you throughout all the different sort of life seasons and language learning seasons you will inevitably go through. The routine that you need actually needs to fit your busy life. Now, one of my clients, Dante, found that he was struggling with some of the same things that made his routine completely unsustainable, and he was learning a language, focusing on that part, without thinking about how to make it more of a lifestyle for himself. He knew that in order to reach more fluency in French, he needed to increase his listening skills, and he was using an app called Pimsleur that are mostly audio-only lessons in order to get this listening practice in for about an hour a day, commuting to and from work. The only problem was that during the early mornings, he wasn't retaining much because he was still waking up at that time. He had to wake up around 5 a.m. And then in the evenings, when he tried to repeat the same lesson, he felt that he still wasn't retaining anything because he just felt overstimulated. And he felt the pressure to always fill his day and any downtime that he had with something having to do with language learning, just to make him feel good that he was doing something. And I don't know if you relate to that at all, but it is definitely a trap language learners fall into, that create an unsustainable approach to how they're doing languages, and definitely making it so that whatever they're doing in their learning feels like a chore, right? It's something that they don't look forward to anymore. Dante definitely told me when we started working together how he was dreading when he had to get in the car to commute, because he felt like even though he was putting in so much effort, the results and getting more fluent in French and improving his listening comprehension to have those conversations was not even seeing any improvement. He also tended to start and try to listen at least 3 times over to the same lesson, which really got him into black and white thinking, right? Thinking that he must do something or use a certain resource one way only, otherwise he would not reach his fluency goals. And this also wasn't the best for him in the sense that he was a very visual learner, and Pimsleur is very audio based. And that is when we sat down together and applied my use principles, which are make learning useful, sustainable, and enjoyable. And we took our focus off of trying to learn something when we were already overstimulated in the car after or before work, and we instead focused on what he enjoyed doing in the evenings as downtime. He was around an intermediate level anyways in French, so he mentioned to me that he loved to read and was familiar with also a lot of novels and books that were just translated into French as well as his native language, English. So what we did instead was we actually replaced his reading time that he usually does anyways, right, as part of his lifestyle, with a book in French, and accompanying that with listening to the audiobook as he was reading. That hit 2 skills, right? 2 birds with 1 stone, we can say, because he was working on both reading and listening skills. It helped him cater to his more visual learner style because he could actually see the words while listening to them, so he was still working on that. This was enjoyable for him anyways because this reading is what he did anyways in his life, whether or not language learning was involved. And then it was also sustainable for him because he could just monitor his energy in the evenings and see how much he wanted to read. So Dante made learning work for him using these 3 principles. Let's break them down a little bit more together. So I talk about the first principle, make your language learning useful, in the sense of needing to tie whatever we do to our goals, but also our interests, right? What are we already doing in our lives? And of course, we want to make whatever we're doing in learning useful. Otherwise, it gets discouraging whenever we try to invest so much time and effort and we see little to no results out of it. Our second principle, sustainable, refers to building routines out of systems that are adaptable, flexible enough for our ever-changing energy, our obligations in life that are also going to change, as well as for how our brain works. And enjoyable, our third principle, is absolutely crucial. Because as language learners, we usually have the pattern of not wanting to count any sort of language learning activity that doesn't quote unquote feel hard enough as counting towards our wins for the day, for our accomplishments in learning in general. Or we think that we must use joy as a reward for doing something hard in our language learning that counts. And the fact is, we will not stick to our routine, our system, whatever we have in place for language learning, if it is not enjoyable, both short-term and long-term. And joy can be reached because it is already within your right to access it anytime that you want. So if we were to employ these principles, what this would look like if you were learning Spanish and you were at an intermediate level. Say you really liked to cook and you also have to cook for dinner every night. So what you would do is pick something useful. For example, a recipe that helps you also orient more towards Spanish culture in Spain. And then that helps you locate, maybe on YouTube, a Spanish speaking video talking about a particular dish. It makes it enjoyable because you like to cook in general, let's say, and it fits into your lifestyle already because you have to cook. So why not cook something that is fun and new? Maybe it's a recipe that you already know technically, but you want to make it in Spanish, kind of maybe see what adjustments they make to their own recipes with the same dish. Thinking more in terms of this strategy with the used principles, instead of just telling yourself, hey, I'm gonna study 1 hour a day, my flashcards, right? I wanna make it clear that really anything that you are doing can be, for a specific language learner, the way to apply these principles. However, not everything is going to be useful, sustainable, and enjoyable for you because you are a whole unique person. And so it does take some experimentation in order to really get the hang of this. But once you do, that is when truly you get so much more focus and clarity. And you get to look forward to your studies. What a wonderful thing. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to include language learning to fill absolutely all the downtime that you have in your day. In fact, I would discourage against that, especially if you have fluctuating energy levels. Again, we're not wanting to build our routines and systems off of ideally how we imagine we will feel throughout the week. We really need to consider, hey, what could happen and how can my routine and or systems account for that, right? And by sticking to these principles, with whatever activities that we have to get us to our goals for, fluency in the future, right? Those are going to already set us up for being able to stay consistent. It's going to make it easier to start our routines and activities that we want if we know that they are useful, sustainable, and enjoyable already, that they're already integrated into one or a few aspects of our lifestyle, right? Maybe not all of them. Again, we don't need to fill all of our routines or all of our downtime with language learning stuff, right? This is supposed to work around your life, and the principles aren't there to make you feel like you're supposed to just cram everything in there to try to feel more productive, let's say. And once you start to apply successfully and more consistently these 3 principles throughout your learning, you'll start to notice that you make every moment, everything that you decide to do in your language learning count. Nothing is ever a waste of your time within your routine because you know how you learn best, because you know, again, that it applies to useful, sustainable, enjoyable, and that it can adapt to your ever-present and ever-changing needs and other obligations. If you are interested in building more of a sustainable routine, as well as apply more often these 3 principles to your routine, do make sure to go to the pinned comment below and get the Language Learning Sustainability Planner that I made just for you entirely for free. The main takeaway is fluency is best built when it integrates seamlessly into your lifestyle, and that can look a lot of different creative, fun ways, I assure you. And it also assures you that joy, and when you feel joy in your learning, should always be accessible, because that is what you deserve as you work towards fluency. And also, as you apply these principles over time, you will be reminded that the stage of learning that you are in right now is just as worthy as the stage of fluency that you are working towards. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to comment down below what was a specific point that you felt was most insightful or that helped you the most from what I told you here. I'd love to know in the comments, and I'll see you in another video soon.